All right.
We still have 1 minute. We're trying to rush it here. We've got like another 30 seconds.
Oh, is there?
Oh.
The difference is de minimis, though.
USB, testing.
You okay, Debbie? You okay, Nina? Okay. Good evening. Wow, got an overflow tonight. I want to call to order the August 12, 2024 Harpers Ferry Town Council meeting to order. Would you all please stand and join me with pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda. We have a motion.
Motion to amend the agenda.
Can we get a second first?
He's gonna amend it before.
All right, what do we amend?
I would like to move item ORC section, which is item 5H 1, 2, 3, and 4, to immediately after item 3, which is community announcements.
And reasons?
The reason is we have some mentally dense matters here, and I'd like to see this up at the front of the agenda when some of us can still clear money.
I'm not sure that's really a legitimate reason.
Okay.
To move something.
I'll
but
second that.
I'll put it on the floor. Roberta,
I'll send that motion now.
any other? Okay, so we have an amendment to move
5H.
5H 1, 2, 3, and 4 to immediately follow 4,
To maybe follow 3.
immediately follow 3.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? None carries.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
I second.
Chris, second on the motion. All in favor of the motion to approve? Mayor's announcements, I only have one vacancy for the JCDA. Some of you are not familiar with that. That's the Jefferson County Development Authority. And all the municipalities have representatives on that. Our current representative, Ben Love, his term expired in April 22. This is really a hard vacancy to fill. In the past, we've had difficulties. They want 3 names, town commission, and in the past, they were lucky to get 1 to fill this. Both from my term, and I believe from Wayne's term, was the same way. I believe it dates back to even Bill Anderson. He was mayor. It's a difficult thing to fill. But there is a vacancy there, and if anyone's interested, let me know. I will forward the name to yeah, right. I'll forward it to the county administrator. Roberta.
I'd like to throw my name in the hat, please.
Pardon?
I would like to throw my name in the hat.
Okay, just send me an email.
All right,
Okay.
I had a question about that, when you say 3 names, I mean for one.
Yeah, because the county commission makes a selection, not us. They want each municipality, when they send somebody, to send 3 names to.
We can submit Roberta Mead, Roberta Curry and Roberta K. Curry.
Before you proceed, can y'all check to make sure your microphones are on?
Wow.
I can see that green.
Test.
Are you green there?
Mine was green and then it went black. Did you move the battery now? Charge?
There you go.
I mean, I'm green now, but
You're good. Yeah. I
Okay.
can see, but
Okay, so that takes care of that. Nina, do you have anything?
yeah. So on September 26th is Save a Life Day, which is being hosted all over Jefferson County by the Health Department. Bolivar will be hosting an event at the Bolivar Community Center. I will be working as a representative from Bolivar to kind of set that up, but it's a Save a Life Day where they teach about Narcan and narcan safety. We are looking for volunteers if anyone's interested, dividing up into shifts from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. On September 26th at the Bolivar Community Center. I'll make another announcement as well in September. So you can post it.
Thank you, Nina. Laurel, you have anything?
They do.
Great.
Great news.
So on the Thursday before last, the Jefferson County Commission voted 5-0 for the creation of the TIF district. So we have gone through that whole process, and now we are formulating the bonds for the TIF district, and they will go back to the county commission. And of course, we have the 3 building permits already in hand, so we're getting closer every day to a groundbreaking. As soon as we get the TIF bonds voted on, we'll have a little bit more of a date. Thank you.
May I ask a question of
Sure.
the presenter? Congratulations, and that's excellent news. It's long awaited, I know. You said you have 3 building permits, and I know on previous meetings, we requested for some drawings to be sent to us so we can kind of see what the hotel bond is looking like. Do we have any of the approved drawings that you've gotten a copy to this town council?
I have not supplied any drawings to the town council.
I thought we requested that some time ago, but can we?
I remember their questions on the water plan that was sent to Mayor Steve, but I never heard a request for them to be sent to town council.
Can we?
I mean, this is not under the town's purview.
I totally understand that, and I totally understand that also. But it would be nice if we, as the town council, could maybe have a set here in the office. There are a lot of people asking, what is it gonna look like? What does it look like? Da, 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 da. We're excited. So can we get a set of plans? May you formally ask for a set of plans?
If and when they become finalized and for the public, then we'll do so.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you, Bob.
the building permits, are they for the main structure or are they for other structures? So you have mentioned before demolition permits or restoration permits for other.
Right, so it's all of phase 1, which the building permits are the yellow house, the lodge, and the main hotel. So they've all been issued.
But not for the main.
Different than
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is the first month that I do not pay for it. In the middle of stuff I've already talked about. So if you have anything for the park, please let me know. I'm here. Zach?
I just want to express my thanks for the repairs to the sidewalk at the corner of High Street and Shenandoah Street. It's been that way since the highway was closed, and I'm just happy to see that repaired. I know it's a tricky jurisdictional overlap, so thank you.
We work that on.
And how go the different projects down on Shenandoah Street?
So the gutter project, which is again repairing or replacing the gutters on a lot of the lower town buildings, is chugging along on time and on time, as our architect likes to say. The HVAC project is just getting going, and you will see some fencing finally going up, I think, this week. to start, to protect the construction area, but also the equipment that they'll be using. So.
Anything else for Mr. McCollum?
I have a community.
Okay, nothing else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other community announcements, Chris?
No, and this does involve the park. I think a number of people here were at the concert at the Mather Lawn yesterday. A good crowd, an amazing concert. I want to personally say it's exciting to have Howard Burns Quartet back and be celebrating Don Redman there again. So I really, and the whole Appalachian Chamber Music Festival is going well. For those of you who have not had a chance to hear them yet, Saturday night they'll be back in Harpers Ferry at Camp Hill Church. That one is not a free concert, but it should be very good. And so,
I have two quick announcements, sir. Yeah? Okay, first I'd like to thank Police Chief Brown and his staff. I read in the paper that there was an arrest made and a conviction, and the victim is back home and they're recovering. That was the woman that was attacked in Bolivar some time ago. So it was nice to hear that there's good news that she's recovering. So thank you for your force making that happen and getting arrested, making that us feel safer very quickly. Secondly, hopefully everyone saw the announcement in the paper. I'd like to congratulate Sally Gasters and Chad and Carrie Gauthier for an amazing little film for the restaurant little show that came here and filmed them live here. So we wish them a good return on that broadcast. So congratulations to them.
Thank you, Roberta. Any other community announcements?
I have one.
No, go ahead.
So every year there's a national night out. It's for law enforcement to come out to the community and kind of do a meet and greet, and they plan activities. It's organized by the first year by Ransom Police Department. Since then it's been the sheriff's office. This year we didn't have quite as big of a turnout because Debbie was causing problems. But it did stay clear for almost the entire event. The storm didn't come in until we were cleaning up, and we had got out there before it rained. And they did not get us any kind of flyer or anything to do much advertising with it or to get it out there much this year until the last minute. So hopefully over time, more people from Harpers Ferry will make their way up. They've typically had it at the Home Depot parking lot. So, and it's always either the first or second Tuesday in August. So hopefully in the next few years or so, we're still participating and still doing that. Some of our community can get out and see that. And if we get our advertising a little bit sooner, we can get it out quicker.
Community announcement. Yeah. I was hiking today in Rebecca Woods, and I'll show you what I found on a tree. Spotted lanternfly.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They're everywhere. And the whole tree was covered with them.
Yeah, they're all.
Yeah.
So I hope we're doing something about that.
I have a solution to that. And I have an entomologist who gave me a recipe. You use Dawn and water on a spray bottle and you spray them.
It works.
It works. And they are falling quickly at my house. So
You can also, if you take down trees that have it on your property, they feed on those like nothing else. Highly invasive.
All right.
Do we want a motion on that?
You can't.
Chocolate. All right, let's move to 5H1, 2, and 3. 5H1,
Sorry.
ORC report. Who's got that?
okay, that would be me. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for moving this up so we can get a lot of attention. So I have the report on for you and others down the street here. But basically, I'll hit the highlights. We are on unfinished business, still working on 735, Article 735. We have 2 ordinances tonight to read into for their first readings. And what I'm going to skip to here is item D, item 2D. we do have a request, the ORC request permission to present a series of questions from our July 26, 2024 agenda, item 2C, in advance to the town attorney, Ken Sayer, to arrange for a meeting with the town attorney and ORC. So we have a list of questions regarding that request to revise Articles 133 et al. Through 1104. And we have a series of questions that we have finally come up with. So we're asking that we can have a meeting with the town attorney set up here very quickly. And I don't know if I make that phone call, or you make that phone call, we make that phone call together. So that we would like to have that done hopefully in the next couple weeks. Also on Article 130, the town ORC received recommendations to have that looked at and some changes made. So our ORC recommends the town council that there be no changes to the Harpers Ferry Code of Ordinances, Part 1, Administrative Code, Article 130. Under new business, okay, that is again another ordinance that we're going to read into the record for a few minutes. But ORC, under this item, we found some typos under Article 527 that we will do later. But right now, we're just going to tackle I guess, the immediate need to amend this Article 527 and Appendix B. But we'll bring some further text amendments to you regarding typos and changes to West Virginia Code to update our ordinances. Also, we understand from the Tree Commission, Article 1104, they are going to go through the Planning Commission first and have them review the changes that they're asking for and then bring it to ORC. And then we still need to know what is happening with the West Virginia law changes that Ken Sayer brought to our attention in March. And we have not heard back. I know at least one or two of those West Virginia laws went into effect in July. That has to do with our permits. So we needed Ken Sayer to get back with us, and I have not heard. Our next meeting will be August 30th. Okay, so that concludes my report. Any questions on that?
Just one request.
Yes.
So for most of the items, it's there, but when listing on agendas or reports what the items are, if there could be a brief description, if it's not just the article number, just if you are especially a member of the public, you may have no idea what the subject is, just be helpful to kind of at a glance know what it is.
If I was going to say Article 527, and you wanted to know a brief description of Article
just like,
527.
yeah,
Okay.
just that kind of thing.
All right,
Thank
I can do that better next time. Okay, are we ready to go ahead with the reading of the first of the ordinances?
Overseeing number 2, discussion and first reading the text amendment of definition of short-term rental.
Are we ready to
Yeah,
proceed with that?
I've got questions.
Okay.
Refresh my memory, Roberta. What was the genesis of this?
Okay, and I believe it came through the administration and OCO, where there was some issues where they needed this to be a little bit more tighter definition. And because they were getting complaints of things happening in a residential district. And so they wanted to make sure that maybe the definition was a little bit more tighter with the word overnight accommodation or overnight occupancy. So the word overnight technically was not in your original code. And then we kind of massaged it a little bit to include bed and breakfast inns and hostels. But again, we kept the original code portion of, and this draft and the last draft we presented for first reading, hotels and motels as your original definition stood. We also caught some typos and some clarifications. Added a house where it only said a dwelling unit. So we just kind of clarified the word house. But it was really to kind of solve some complaints.
So some other entity other than this town council approach ORC with it.
The administration and the OCO, not another,
What do you mean?
the Patty brought forward. Yes. There was no other entity that brought in information.
And I'll get the email. Sure. And And when this was discussed at ORC, the definition you come up with, was that a unanimous decision?
The definition, the first time we came up with the definition, it was a vote of 2-1. There,
Who was the voters?
the 3 members of the ORC are,
Who was the two and who was the one?
okay, George and myself are 2, and Chris Craig was 1.
And you said the first time, so.
Yes.
You have another definition, right? Is that the second time?
Well, I'm talking about the first reading. The first time it was presented to you,
Right.
I believe it was in June. I was not here, and I had another member of the ORC present the reading, first reading for this text amendment.
Is. So. Current definition for this first reading. From ORC is a result of only 2 affirmative votes and 1 negative vote. Is that correct?
For this second attempt of the first reading,
Yes.
correct? It's the same as last time, 2-1. Yes, sir.
So it's 2-1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you were discussing the definition, I'm curious as to why was the bed and breakfast included here, whereas in its original definition, it was excluded. Why did you make that decision?
And again, I think I guess the,
What
do I-
elements you used
sure.
and why made that decision that that's what you're going to do?
What we do in the ORC is we look at other towns. We use Shepherdstown, Ransom, Charlestown. I'm trying to think if we use anybody else. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. But those 3 towns for sure. And we look at what their codes are doing, and are we similar or are we different? Or can we be similar? And is it working for them? And so we make those evaluations during our review process. In the past, and in what the market is now seeing, is bed and breakfasts are being determined or are functioning now, mainly because of COVID. They are functioning as short-term rentals. They no longer offer that full breakfast accommodation. The innkeeper technically is not there anymore. The bed and breakfasts are operating as short-term rentals. So that was kind of another reason why we added it to
What about Airbnb?
Airbnbs are short-term rentals.
If I may.
Go ahead, Storm, and then Chris, and then George. 1, 2, 3.
And that was the thing that when we discussed it last week, there's a logical disconnect. And
Discussed it last week
sorry, the last month when we went over this.
in June.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we discussed it, it seemed to read that bed and breakfast inns were included, but this category of vacation rentals was not. Vacation rentals also appear in another part of our ordinances. And I asked George, does this mean that they are included or not? He said that they were not. So I suggested that a fix to that would be to say, including but not limited to bed and breakfast inns, so that it's clear, or to create a definition. I didn't say this at the last meeting, but to create a definition for vacation rentals.
Okay, and may I address his question about, because we did in the ORC report, we did come up with, we are going to work on striking vacation rentals in our code where it's referenced, because vacation rentals now technically is going to be the short-term rental, but by definition of the industry, vacation rentals are a whole nother animal. And what a vacation rental can be, it can be an entire professionally managed resort condominium complex. We don't have the room for that in this town. So we want to make sure that we are truly distinguishing that vacation rental is not something that we're including as a short-term rental. It is a different animal. And what we really, really want to say under that section in as the conditional use, which you brought forward, which I'm glad you caught that, we want to change that vocabulary in our language that where vacation rental is used to put the word short-term rental, because I think that's was really the intent of what your code was.
Chris?
Yeah, I'd like to simplify the history on this a little bit. I think Patty and Kevin came to us with concerns, as Roberta expressed, and we really addressed that by changing the definition to include that overnight occupancy. I think that was the thing that the office corrected or wished to clarify. And so we addressed it with that. Then we started looking at the present definition that was in that last clause, excluding, well, including and excluding. It had a list of things that we had no other definitions for, things like boarding houses and one other antiquated
Rooming house, rooming houses, boarding
rooming houses, perhaps. And so the other thing that we were concerned about is that since that definition was developed, the state has really taken away the town's discretion on differentiating between bed and breakfast and other short-term rentals. Here in Harper's Ferry, traditionally that was the difference between owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied. We no longer have that right, says the West Virginia Code. So we felt it was important. I felt it was important to specifically include bed and breakfast, which is otherwise defined in that list of definitions. However, hotels also is separately defined, and we wanted to exclude that from this house or dwelling unit, the smaller thing. Now, the disagreement, the 2-to-1 vote, mainly came after we had discussed the first reading. Storm had suggested adding vacation rental and hostels, which, by the way, are not defined in that list elsewhere. And Storm explained his reasoning for that. The council accepted that amendment and included it. I suggested, Roberta had strongly felt that motels should be included in the excluded list, excluding hotels and motels. I don't think that's a real huge deal, but I somewhat objected to it because motels is not defined in it, and it would certainly be covered by the present definition of hotels. She's talking about industry definitions. I think that's irrelevant because we're going by Harper's Ferry definitions, not industry definitions. And I also don't see much threat of a motel coming into this little town's jurisdictions. Nevertheless, my biggest objection was that the council passed that as amended in the first reading, and she refused to bring it back
I object
for a
to that.
second reading as we had passed it. So that's what I was outvoted on in our last ORC meeting. I strongly objected to that. George?
As council, to your last point, voted last time, just send it back to ORC. That's moot. To the point of your question about why this came to us, it was the office of Editor Patty and OCO wanted to be able to differentiate accurately. And there was an issue in town here because it didn't specify whether rentals referred to a carnival rental or an overnight. We need to distinguish that in this town. We're going to permit and breakfast, whether we're gonna have a carnival down the block from my house is another matter altogether. So we, as Chris said, we successfully put the housing part in where it's now talking that we're not permitting carnival. I'd like to say that it's true, motels aren't defined in the Harpers Ferry Code at the moment. We can do that in a heartbeat if we want to. It's not gonna really raise a fuss if we pass this and then do the motel definition later. The main point here, the issue of why we want to exclude motels from short-term rentals. Because we don't have one, it doesn't mean someone's not going to come in here with a series of vacant lots and say, I'm going to configure this in such a way that I'm going to create a motel here. If we don't exclude motels, specifically because in the legal profession it states, so they state always that the burden of specificity falls to the office. If we don't specifically exclude motels, we leave the door open for a motel through a BZA appeal. And that's just flat out. My last comment is the only reason to vote not to exclude motels is if you want a motel in town. Thank you.
Just from my point of view on all this, it seems like I just don't want to bury the lead that the edits here define a short-term rental by use as overnight accommodation. So whether or not hotels or motels are included or excluded, it seems to speak to the use of property for some sort of special event like a carnival, which would never happen at a hotel or motel. So I think that I just don't want us to get lost in the weeds on that last part, because the first part seems to be the more important, and it seems to cover it either way. But
Can I
that's my
respond to
2
the
cents.
rebuttal, please?
Roberta, second one.
Yes, thank you. Again, the discussion when this was presented for first reading, again, I presented it at the time it was supposed to have second reading. And based on case law, the changes were too far, went too far. So it was remanded back to RC, which was your option, and that's what we did, remanded it back. And so I think it's in poor taste that we keep discussing this. And what happened in ORC. What happened in ORC, you should say in ORC, the vote is on the table, it's before you as first reading. But our code does say, if it's not defined, we are to use Webster's Standard, Merriam-Webster's. We are to go back and use the standard definition used out there in the world. So market definitions do apply to this town and do apply to our codes all the way through it if the definition is not there. That section is in our code. Motel, I'll read the definition of motel. Motel is for a hotel providing travelers with lodging and free parking facilities. Typically a roadside hotel having rooms adjacent to an outside parking area, or an urban hotel offering parking within the building. Typically, that's all it is. It's an open air type of structure. Hotel, however, is a totally different animal. An establishment that provides lodging, usually with meals, entertainment, and various personal services on premise, like a full-fledged restaurant, like we're going to have on top of the hill, up there at Hilltop, a full-fledged conference center. It offers meeting rooms, a facility, a pharmacy, little sundry shop. So a hotel is a much bigger animal than a motel. And again, you have a situation before you with town council today, because the definition is not in our code. Therefore, they're demanding I am and I can, and you must let me be. So that is what we're trying to avoid. And that's what we need to do, is get the word motel back in there. That was the only thing that was in your original code. And that was the only thing I was trying to say, is get back to your original language and only change what we need to change.
Storm, second one.
Yeah, so motel, hotel, frankly, if motels are there, that's fine. I feel like the initial issue that was addressed, as Zach was saying, was addressed by making it overnight accommodation versus transient occupancy. However, I feel like we cannot have this go through as it is, because it would directly violate the home rule guidance. My understanding, what I heard about this, is to actually go back and strike reference of short-term rental, which is more encompassing to me just about any property that wants to rent can. And that it was said that bed and breakfasts not necessarily inclusive of it. And guidelines per home rule, section 2F, home rule municipalities may not pass any ordinance, act, resolution, rule, or regulation that prohibits, limits the rental of property or regulates the duration, frequency, or location of such rental. I think if we are effectively erasing short-term rentals from the ordinances, we're counter to that.
Point of order, that's the wrong definition of home rule.
Go ahead, George, real quick. Yeah, real quick. We're not limiting or prohibiting. We're defining and allowing short-term rentals on residential lots. So if home rule doesn't apply to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Second last.
Clarifying that we're not restricting anything. It's ordinance, we are defining it.
Yeah.
And if we are including motels, hostels, vacation rentals, we probably ought to have them in the list too, telling people what they are. If you can find a motel anywhere in America that is not covered by our definition of hotel, which I was trying to find very quickly, but I can't bring it up right now. And I think we would be well covered.
Thank you.
That's a clarifying question. I'm gonna be honest, I'm pretty lost as to where we're at with this at this point.
We don't have a motion on the
Lost
floor
it
yet.
about 10 comments ago. So I need to understand what are we trying to do? What is is there an actual issue that can be really pinpointed with the verbiage that is being presented? And I know, Christy, you had mentioned that you had an issue with how it was presented in ORC. And that was more to do with the previous council's decision, or the previous decision we made back in June regarding the vote for the changing of the language. So if it's being brought back now as a first draft, so we're scrapping everything that we've viewed at this point. This is an entirely new consideration. We're taking everything from June out of our brains. Where do we stand if we take out of that or where do you stand if we take that out of consideration? Can I ask that question directly?
Yeah, but I'm not following in here.
Some of the objections I heard that back in June we had made decisions, but we're coming back from this as a first draft. So June, every decision that was made previously has been scrapped from our brains. We're not supposed to consider that. So we're considering this as an entirely new version. So taking that in consideration, because I heard that from the part of the version, the reason you had voted no was because of the decisions that were made previously by council, but we're scrapping that.
Which those decisions which I understood and agreed with.
Okay, so your objection still remains to the language as the second, or as the new first draft has been presented.
I disagree with the reversion, I guess, to this. The basic answer to your question is, I think, and I don't think Roberta would disagree with this, that as she's presented it tonight, it would need a first reading because it differs significantly from what we passed in June.
Correct, which is what's on the agenda tonight is the first reading. Because the decision at last month's meeting was unless it was unanimous across all three members, it couldn't be presented with this.
Although I did notice in the draft that was presented to us, it has the first reading passed, I believe.
It's the date, it should be the date today. It always is the date that you have the first reading. That's
Okay,
what it's
is that
on.
what it is? Okay.
That's all it is. It's not that it's passed.
All right, so what
Technically, it could be
So
passed.
we-
yeah.
we have the first reading?
So we're gonna consider this as a first reading, but you have an objection to this as a first reading.
Well, we'll see what the vote.
Yeah.
All right, so Nina, go ahead. Do your thing first reading.
Well, can I?
Yeah, I'll let Brad have a copy.
Okay, yes. So I'm gonna make a motion, that ordinance 2024-03 of the Corporation of Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, amending the code of ordinances of Harpers Ferry, Part 13, Project and Zoning Code, Article 1302, words, terms, phrases, amending, adopting, revised definition for short-term rental, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinance in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date. Now therefore, it enacted and ordained by the Town Council of the Corporation of Harpers Ferry, Article 1302, words, terms, phrases, definitions for short-term rental of the codified ordinances of Harpers shall be amended and reenacted to read as follows. Short-term rental, we're capitalizing the term, So it should read short-term rental with T capitalized. The word use becomes uncapitalized. So it should read the use of a house or dwelling unit offered for rent for overnight occupancy by tenants for a tenancy of 30 days or less, including bed and breakfast inns and hostels, but not hotels or motels.
I second that motion.
Amended.
Sure.
I'd like to add the phrase, including but not limited to bed and breakfast inns.
Second on the amended motion.
Second.
Chris. Discussion on the amended motion. George.
Yes, I wouldn't have any problem with that, but my note here is that when you put but not limited to in a document that establishes a restriction, you render the restriction meaningless. In other words, I leave my entire estate, says Melissa, to George Owens, but not limited to him. So who else is getting Melissa's estate? Well, you see my point here?
And I withdraw, I'd like to substitute the term short-term rental. rentals.
Would you please state that again? I'm sorry.
If the second agrees, I would like to withdraw that amendment and substitute in that place the term short-term rentals.
If that's what we're defining.
I'm sorry, vacation rental.
All right, one more time. Sean.
I'd like to withdraw.
Okay, it's withdrawn.
Great. And then make sure I have the term correct. And substitute the term vacation rentals
Where?
in the same spot specified before.
So you're saying
So
including bed and breakfast?
bed and breakfast inns, comma, vacation rentals, comma, and hostels.
Second.
And my reading of Home Rule was directly from their website, and it is correct.
Go
All
ahead,
right,
Ken, say
yeah,
it, Melissa.
All right, put your hands up, please. And then if you have,
I have the addition to it.
okay, I want for the records, Storms and then read. I don't want to hear us strike this and underline that, read it without the redlining, okay?
Yeah, the use of a house or dwelling unit offered for rent for overnight occupancy by tenants for a tenancy of 30 days or less, including bed and breakfast inns, vacation rentals, and hostels, but not hotels or motels.
That works for me?
It is.
All right, for a second on that amendment, we have a second from Chris, discussion on that amendment. George and then Roberta.
I don't see the need for that, and I see a harm. I don't think vacation rentals are something we want to open the door to. We're going to open the door possibly to timeshare. And timeshares are some people believe they're a scam, but they create extreme volatility in the real estate market. People crowd the door, and then all of a sudden they're rushing out the door. And I think that would adversely affect the home values of all our residents in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Roberta and then Zach.
Yes, and again, as I mentioned before, vacation rentals is like an antiquated term, maybe in our code, because we didn't know what it was way back when. We do know the market now defines something called short-term rental, and Airbnb is basically a brand of a short-term rental. And again, vacation rental is a renting out of a furnished apartment house or professionally managed resort condominium complex on a temporary basis. These are much larger facilities and sometimes come with deeds. I mean, I have the definition right here. It's a much larger animal. And what we're trying to do is strike the word vacation rentals from Harper's Ferry vocabulary and replacing it with the new market acceptable term short-term rentals. And we will be revising section 1302 or 4, wherever that was located, and we're going to strike the words vacation rentals from the Harpers Ferry ordinance, because it is confusing. We're going to put in the word short-term rental. That's why we're defining it here. It's two different animals.
Okay, thank you, Zach, and then Storm.
I just, again, want to bring it back to that we're not approving or refusing the existence of anything. We are defining a specific use for a set of properties. So this back end where we're including or disincluding things, it's in a definition by way of a use. So I don't want us to get hung up, and I think that if we're more inclusive by adding something like vacation rental, it prohibits someone in the future arguing that their property is a vacation rental, not a short-term rental, and therefore they are immune from the rest of the definition. So if we can be more inclusive in this, it seems to be the better way to go.
Thank you, Zach. Storm.
I'm good, thanks.
Good, thank you. Second shot, second shot, George.
Okay, very brief, Zach. The reason for the utensil of the back end here was, short-term rentals are permitted for a residential lot in this town. That's what we're doing. Anything that you include under that, you're inviting under a residential lot, and hence the caution. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Chris.
I think,
First shot.
I think Roberta's concern about the size is eliminated here by the fact that we're saying a household dwelling unit.
All right. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Opposed? Amendment carries. Main motion. All those in favor of the motion, amended motion, raise your hand. Opposed? 6-1. All right, that one, Joe.
Point of information, does that bring us, will we have a second reading at the next town council meeting? Is that how that goes? Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Ordinance ORC number 3, discussion action, first reading, text amendment to 527 section, part 13, appendix B related to or to that.
Yes, that's me as well. Okay, again, this is a reading for ordinance 2024-04. What was requested of the ORC by administration and the OCO was there was a conflict, and they've received some complaints regarding noise and hours of operation for exterior work during the construction project. So ORC met immediately on this, and I think we resolved it immediately. I think there was a very good meeting, and we came back with a anonymous vote, 3-0. We agreed to these changes. And so if there was anything you wanted to discuss on this one, we can, but I'd like to make this fairly brief and move forward with the first reading.
Bear with me for a minute, Roberta. I saw there's still sources. Five through 7 have limitations regarding 10K to 8. Correct?
I'm sorry, can you ask?
5 through 7
Yes,
has limitations on noise between 10 feet and 8K.
10 p.m. and 8 a.m. Yes, sir.
Go to appendix B.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's discrepancies throughout that. Still, regarding time frame.
Yes, sir. And I think we
In Article 527, decibel limitations between 10 feet and 8K. It doesn't address holidays, weekends.
are you looking at appendix?
Hours of exterior work do not coincide with the noise prohibitions in 527. Article D's hours of exterior work don't coincide with the noise prohibitions in 527.
Correct, sir.
Can I clarify what? our
May I
discussion-
address it, please? Okay, may I? Okay. So, what we did discuss this in ORC, And what we thought was a simpler solution was to attack Appendix B, because that is what the concern was. It was permitted hours of exterior work on construction projects. And then what we did, instead of reiterating or changing 527, we agreed that all we are saying is the hours still stand in 527 because it meets the obligation from the homeowner. Okay, but when it comes to permitted construction activities, we are to go back to Appendix B. Okay, and that is what we are trying to say. And I have some clarifications because I wanted to add some text to Appendix B because it's not clear where Appendix B is, but we'll get to that. But I wrote it exactly how ORC approved it. So that's what we have, is the hours were requested to be changed in Appendix B to address the construction project issues, where in 527, it really has to do with the homeowner, but we've added that additional clarification where if it's a construction project, please go see Appendix B. Is that fair, Chris and George?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's clear. We felt that 527 is a more general regulation for mowing our lawn using a chainsaw or something, that those hours were reasonable for that. However, we had concern, and I think Kevin had concern that he conveyed through Patty, that companies or construction projects that are permitted might have problems not showing up until 8 for work, and some of the other restrictions there. So we instead made it an exception in that one clause on 527 that these projects will be rather governed by Appendix B.
So we're not allowing the cessation. Can a resident, we approve this, can a resident cut their grass on Sunday?
Right. I believe so.
According to this, yes.
Yeah.
This only covers construction.
See, you're mowing your lawn doesn't have anything to do with Appendix B. It has to do with
Can a homeowner do a repair on their private residence on a Sunday?
If it's a permitted
If it's permitted work, then it would fall under
project.
the permitted hours of exterior work.
But if it was not permitted, then it would be fine.
All right, say that again.
So if it's permitted work, I think regardless of if it needed a construction company or someone to be involved, they would be restricted to these hours. So if it was exterior work that was going to be done that was permitted, they would not be able to do it on a
Okay, well, let's say it's the homeowner who's not getting a permit and not bringing in Bubba's siding company. The homeowner wants to do the work himself, and he's only home on Sundays. He works Monday through Saturday. So we're prohibiting a homeowner to work on
No,
Saturday?
he would be able to, if it was not permitted work. But if he did seek a permit, which should be encouraging people to seek permits for work that would be structural to their homes, then it would fall under this.
Okay, so we are not, to be clear, we are not prohibiting a homeowner, private property homeowner, to do repairs on his or her dwelling on Sunday or on Labor Day. Is that correct?
If it's unpermitted.
That's
May I answer the question?
Mm-hmm.
If it's unpermitted, I'm not sure I know what that means.
Like if they came here and they saw the permit for work that they were doing to the exterior of their home, they would need to follow.
No, let's say it's a like-for-like change. They have to get a permit.
Then it would not need to follow it. So it's a like for like change, not a problem. But if they were gonna change something structural that required a permit, then to the exterior of their home, then they would need to follow this process.
Zach, you've had your hand up for a longer.
It was just to nail on the like for like versus not. So if it's something that Kevin, the OCO, would have to approve via permit, not a like for like or a substantial structural addition, then it would fall under permitted.
Rory, you want to add to that?
Yes, sir. And understand what 527.02 says, it's noise prohibited. So under paragraph D, the noise prohibited would be coming from power tools and equipment from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. So the sound of a hammer, the sound of a saw, the sound of a lawnmower, et cetera, is not prohibited.
Skill saw, would-
Sorry?
The sound of a skill saw would be.
If a skill saw is defined as power tool or equipment, then it would be prohibited at those hours. Yes,
So
sir.
just need to sleep
in
in
front of it.
before you get the spill.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. What do we got?
Are we ready for
Yeah,
the
just read it.
first
All you need
read?
to do is revert it and read the title.
Okay, and I don't need to put the language into the record,
Just read
what's
it.
been changed.
No, just. the
Okay, okay, all right, I can do that. Okay. All right, I make a motion, the ordinance number 2024-04 of the Corporation of Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, amending the Code of Ordinances of Harpers Ferry, Part 13, Project and Zoning Code, Appendix B, Standards for Project Activities, Permitted Hours per Exterior Work, as per Exhibit 1 attached, and Part 5, General Offenses, Code Article 527, Noise, Section 527.02, Noise Prohibited, as per Exhibit 2 attached, amending and adopting text amendments as presented, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
There's a second on them. There's a second for Storm. Excuse me, discussion on the motion back.
My big concern with this is that in two different places, I understand the difference in definition of types of work and noise, but the hour differences bugs me. The fact that this would allow for loud noise at an earlier time than our general noise ordinance sets us up for confusion. So I think the best thing to do is keep that starting hour the same between the both.
Nina,
I
Madam Clerk.
agree with that. That kind of throws me for a loop a little bit. I think if it was one thing if we allowed all construction to start at the same time, but then there comes in that factor that now we have to see, is this permitted, is this not permitted? What is the sort of semantics in there? That I'm not.
Chris,
Well, we had a concern brought to us by the OCO, who comes from a construction background, and that companies working in Harpers Ferry needed the lesser restriction. A team that they bring in certainly shouldn't have that weekend exclusion, and they need to start earlier. There was no problem with the ending restriction, but Harpers Ferry is a complicated place to find companies to work, and so I think we need to think about that when we're setting restrictions on it. The other nice thing about Appendix B is that if we can have that one source for those companies and those people to go to for that one place for guidance, I think is important.
thanks, Chris. Revert.
Yes, I need to make an amendment to the text for the part for 527. So I need to make a motion to amend the text to read as follows. One, because there's two Appendix Bs in our code. So I want the text to read as follows for part 527.02, noise prohibited. Permitted construction activities shall follow guidelines as listed in Part 13, Project and Zoning Code, Appendix B, Standards and Project Activities, permitted hours of exterior work, period.
Where are you reading?
Okay, so
It's 53 in, it's line 53, which is on the third page of Article 527.
So it's making sure it's clear what Appendix B that is versus another Appendix B that is different.
Yeah, it's
So
just
that-
clarifying the section of Appendix B that it's referencing.
yes, because we have Appendix B in a comprehensive plan. We have Appendix B here, which is the one we want to
There's
revise.
a second on the amended motion. We have a second for Storm, discussion on the amendment. Hearing none, those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Opposed? All right, main motion, the amended motion, all those in favor of the amended motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries 4-3. All right. Oh, well,
So,
first,
no, so,
discussion action
Oh,
on revision to ordinance 134, removal of commission payment.
okay, I have clarification, sir. So the request I asked for to clarify what Appendix B is failed?
No, that,
No,
That's that.
everything.
Everything passed.
Okay, so now we need to have a motion on the first reading as amended.
Correct.
That's what we just did. That was the 4-3 we passed.
Yeah, because you read it first, then we did the amendment. we
I'm not
voted
sure I
yes
know.
on the amendment.
Oh, yeah.
May I have a-
ready for second reading next month.
I think we had a vote on the amended Appendix B correction.
We
That's
did
what we had a
vote.
vote on.
We did.
Yeah. I
We
have
did
a vote
vote.
for both.
Okay, I
It'll be
don't think we
second
did.
reading next week.
Okay, I'll go back to the
Next month.
podium and see.
All right, let's go, page ordinance ORC, discussion action on revision to 17001, removal of commission committee member.
Yes, and I want to address that. And I think, again, it's in poor taste that something that was discussed in the ORC should stay in the ORC. And I think we had a good discussion on Article 130. And I'm sorry that sometimes in a committee, not all the votes can be unanimous. I think Budget and Finance runs their meetings very well. If there's a vote that isn't unanimous, oh well, so be it. That's what happens. That's what happens in committees. Somebody gets outvoted, and I don't think it should be grieved here in front of town council. I think it's important.
Okay, this is not Las Vegas. So
Too bad.
what goes on in Vegas, stays in Vegas, unless ORC is going into an executive session. All right, Chris?
If I may, ORC voted 2-1. Again, I was in the minority, to recommend no action on 13001. I want to remind everyone, of where this came from. We had a case come to us, several months ago, in which we thought that there would need to be a removal of an individual from a town committee. And at that point, I believe the mayor came to us saying that our lawyer had expressed concern.
Well, let me just stop you right there, Chris. I don't want any executive session information in the clear.
Okay,
Let me just say that there was an issue that came before this council. We went into executive session. We had the town attorney there. Without violating any of the information that was in executive session, I want you to, all 6 of you, think back what the issues were that were brought up and what the comment of our town attorney was. And I'll just leave it at that, and we're not gonna go any further. Unless this council wants to go into executive session for this item right now, I would entertain. So, Chris, you are tied together.
yeah,
offering-
I had, well, first off, we had batted around this amendment, well, this article to see how we might agree on an amendment to it, to make it more specific and to put a process into it. And we were unable to come to an agreement on it. This is the draft that I had written, and George particularly had, and pass those down. George particularly had objections to some specific mentions of malfeasance. There was some disagreement also on whether dismissal had to be done at a regular meeting, which is what our current article says. And I had concerns that a regular meeting takes place once a month. If we had some kind of an emergency come up, maybe we needed to allow that to happen at special meetings. And then the last thing that I added on there at the end, just added a process, which I didn't think would be controversial. The town council would make the decision before the removal is effected by a motion and a majority vote of the town council members present. And so I would like to propose that this be taken to the town lawyer for his eyes to go over it and make recommendations whether we amend our ordinance to this effect. I'll make that a motion if
I'd like to hold any motions until we hear from everybody.
All right, what about here? You want to take it to the town lawyer? Chris, you have any to say?
I'm sorry, what do
You
you
want to take it to the attorney, so. Are you
Yes.
proposing
want?
to send your?
Yeah, I'll make this a motion that this draft be presented to the town attorney for review and recommendations.
There's a second on the motion. Second from me, discussion on the motion. Roberta, Storm, George, keep track.
Again, some of the discussions we had in ORC, so we're talking about that, is the examples given. We decided that maybe town attorneys way before us, many town councils way before us, and many elected officials way before us came to the agreement that the way it's written is best because it's not too specific. It leaves it generic and it doesn't forget anything, or it leaves it generic enough so that we can include everything. So we were afraid that by getting too specific, we might be leaving something out. And because the legalese already accepted in West Virginia and all its great legislatures under that roof, and all the great attorneys here in the state of West Virginia probably went through many discussions like the ORC had. And we thought it best, because we didn't want to really get into leaving something out or going too far with something, that we thought the way it read is best. The only real concern we had is the timing of it. We don't think that a majority vote of town council members present is safe. We think every member of this body has a vote. And every member of this body gets to vote a member of the committee in. And therefore, every member of this body should have the power and the ability to vote that member out, provided they find it warranted under 130 as it is written. So to the last line there, to exclude members of the vote is, I think, in poor taste, because a quorum could come and vote somebody out, and that's members of 4 can vote somebody out, when in fact the other 3 didn't agree to it. But all members can be present. There's no excuse for all members not being present, because we have the technical devices before us, phones, iPads, Teams, Zoom. We can be present for a meeting. There's no reason to exclude all 7 members from a vote that they were allowed to vote someone on, and they should be allowed to vote them off. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Storm and George, I will say, I do remember this very well coming up. And there was no attorney involved. The background on this is that there was several individuals serving on 2 commissions/committees that just were not attending meetings, and the town had no device to do anything about that. It was a council decision. I have no recollection whatsoever. I believe this was during Joe Anderson's last couple months in office, or my first month in office. We didn't take this to a council. Take it to an attorney. And it was, the genesis was, there were 2 committees, but there were several individuals just said, I'm not attending any meeting, and we couldn't do anything about it. And that's why the council put this together. Okay, now, Storm, then George.
Yeah, I think this is very important. The reason you just cited and hypothetical other situations where we do not have the tools and legal backup to manage people who are representing the town. I'll just say that. I agree with Roberta that it shouldn't be a simple majority, that it should be, of the quorum present, but it should be a majority of the entire council, whether or not they're present, which does protect to some extent just a small group simply kicking people off of committees and commissions because they don't like
Okay, George, then me.
Thank you. sir.
Yes. Is it appropriate for me to offer an amendment that and my motion would be that the town council of Harpers Ferry leave Article 130 unchanged?
We have a motion on the floor.
So I
it.
leave,
I don't think that's a valid motion.
okay, then I will just argue, please, let us kill this hideous thing in its entirety. I'd like to read, and let my discussion here, I'd like to read this to the public. You don't have this.
Address the chair.
I trust the chair. Here, read this. Our current, this as it is, unchanged, protects the town and it protects the accused. It protects the town because it defaults to objective criteria, no attendance, objective criteria, not taking part, and then it defaults to the state law. So there's process of law involved instead of, I'm sorry, a non-process kangaroo court. Here's what's proposed to add. As it stands, the article says you can be removed from a commission or board for inactivity. That's objective. Neglected duty. That's objective. And then, and of course, it articulates excessive absences, especially without notification. That goes without saying. But then it says or malfeasance. And now here's the changes. Theft or misuse of public funds. Well, that's going to be covered in what follows. But here's the objectionable part. Threats made to an individual. Falsifying town information. Now, you know something? I've sat here and I've said, I've heard people on this board in this town say, this is a tourist town. And I say, I'm sorry, it's not a tourist town, it's a town with a lot of residents who live here. And by the way, we have tourists. This board could decide by a majority vote that that made me guilty of falsifying town information. And there's no judicial process. There's no judicial process of evidence. Nothing. Further adding on to this, misusing sensitive public information for personal benefit. Well, how the devil did you determine that objective? You know, I've taught the book 1984, They Have a Thought Police. This now creates the opinion police, and they're sitting at this table. And that is patently absurd. Now, the article as it goes on says, to achieve compliance with West Virginia Code and what Harpers Ferry codified ordinances. Well, that's what we have in place. And frankly, the matter that we're not allowed to bring up, which occurred last year, was settled by a magistrate in due time. And all this outfit had to do, if we needed to, which we didn't need to, was go, look, magistrate Mr. over here decided that this person was not in compliance with West Virginia Code. They made a decision against him. Sorry, Bucko, you're off our committee, you're off our commission. Completely sufficient. Furthermore, to add insult to injury, and I'll cut this short because I know I want to cut this short. It just does need to happen at a regular meeting because otherwise, this, I don't want to call it the kangaroo court, but I'm on this kangaroo court. This kangaroo court can be convened in 48 hours and knock one of our citizens off for a commission. And then they can do it. So I'm sorry, I'd like to say this needs to die right here. It's an indecency, and I want a roll call vote because I want this to be immortalized.
Thank you, George. Thank you.
I see no harm in asking our attorney's opinion. I think especially the question for our attorney would be,
do you have suggestions based on how it currently exists? To maybe language changes or something like that, especially given his experience working with other municipalities, there might be suggestions he has regarding the language that protect us a little bit. Because that was one of the things that we have discussed is sort of the technicality of some of the terms, and maybe there is verbiage that other towns are utilizing that could be of benefit for us. So I do think that getting the town attorney's opinion on that is would be valuable. I do have a slight concern with enforcing the regular meeting. Not because of, I think maybe we have to have a special meeting with all members present or something like that, we could work that into it. But if it is an emergency situation where someone is facing a direct threat to their physical self and there's threats of harm or something like that, I do think that we potentially a month could be really detrimental to someone. And so that's my only hesitation with insisting on it being at a regular meeting. But that's once again kind of semantics, and I think it's up to the attorney to hear those opinions and kind of weigh in.
Thank you, Ian. Zach?
At previous discussions, in similar matters, I brought up the idea of creating a code of conduct for commissions, committees, elected officials. Something like that might be more concrete than the proposed amendments. But I raised my hand. I'm just want to make sure I understand the process that brought us to where we are. This was directed to ORC. Majority of ORC said leave it as is, and now we're talking about it again. So that confuses me a little bit about our process. But
Yeah, the ORC is not a body of decision making body. ORC is an advisory body. And we have a member of the ORC who has taken issue with that.
The minority report.
Roberta, second on this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I think in our research, we found that majority of the towns, again, the towns we look at, Shepherdstown, Charlestown, et cetera, basically abide by the same text. They didn't really change it. The only town that really went into more detail was in their definitions. Under definitions is where they started to let you know what malfeasance was, let you know what inactivity was, let you know what neglect of duty was, but they did not define it in the article here where it talks about how you do remove someone. So again, Charlestown was the best example of that. Very, very thorough definitions they have addressing maybe what needs to happen instead of changing the code itself. Thank you.
Second to last one.
Yep, so I do agree that this draft is not perfect. Putting hyperbole aside, there's some things that are not well defined. I think the key is definitions. That may be what is asked of the town attorney. To you, Zach, I agree. It's not great that this came up straight through, but I feel like this is something very important that was asked a while ago, and that it merits getting the opinion of someone who's an expert in this area to hopefully equip the town with the tools it needs without creating them.
No discussion. George, last one.
Second to last. Answer the questions of where this language comes from, what's appropriate language. This language that we have existing comes from state code. This is a verbatim pulled from state code with the exception of the line arbitrary codified ordinances. And that's our protection. If somebody comes back and says, you ruined my life, they look to the state. And the other is if we have a danger in this town, that someone's going to be hurt, the action is not going to be ours. I'm not going to run out there and guard someone's door. We have that man in his department over there to take care of it. And that's where the protection is going to come from. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have, I'm sorry, News, second to last.
I like Roberta's suggestion, but I think you said Charlestown did, but they have definitions of what some of the things are. That's something that we could consult the attorney about. But do you think that maybe would be a solution, is the defining a little bit better some of the definitions? That's something that I've heard a couple times tonight, that we might benefit from having a glossary for some of the terms that we have.
A lot of
So yeah, I think that's maybe a suggestion.
The chair will take a discussion point. I see actually, council, no harm in sending the version that Chris has to our attorney. And just ask him to opine on it and review it and give us his opinion on that. If you may, George, come back and exactly what you said, that it's taken right out of state code, so be it, but let him tell us that. None of us around this table are attorneys, and he's got a wealth of information, and I see personally no harm.
Could you add the point of would a set of definitions be better in our words and terms section?
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna make an amendment.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the current motion is move to present suggested ordinance to the town attorney for review. Maybe instead of review, sorry. I like the idea of adding in definitions, for review and consideration, for defining, for creating a glossary of, terms used within our current article, 130.01.
One more time.
Okay, we present the suggested ordinance to the town attorney for review, and to review the potential of a glossary for current terms in article 130.01 removal.
Is there a second from George?
George and I met, remember on that.
You're asking for an amendment of the amendment?
Yes,
I'll second Nina's amendment.
I seconded.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
asked for an amendment,
I'm sorry.
and my amendment is that town council members be present for the discussion with Ken.
I'll second that immediately. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a discussion on the amendment to the amendment?
I withdraw, and then I just add in,
No,
no.
you've already had, it's already.
Let's go through the stack.
It's gone down the.
We got this, you got this. Yes,
Is there a discussion on the amendment?
So clarifying that,
Yeah, I'm confused.
Say it.
This amendment that.
What are you adding to what?
Let him
you
know.
read?
I'm just adding to this whole thing, and that the town council members be present at the discussion with Ken Sager. That's my,
The town council members be present at what?
at the discussion with Ken Sager.
Otherwise, we want to hear it
It would
firsthand.
be a
What's that?
special meeting, that meeting, to discuss it.
Bingo. Bingo. In other words, I don't want us to send a generic question to him, or we get generic question, answer back, and yeah, whatever. And then I got, hey, what about this, or what about that? No.
Yeah, but we're also, when we're gonna deal with the attorney, we're not gonna go off the rails either.
We'll just focus on this baby.
That's right. We're not
Right.
going off the rails.
That's what I'm saying. Okay?
Define off the rails.
You know exactly what.
Okay, so to clarify, yes.
Any other discussion on the amendment to the amendment? We have Chris. Right here.
well, two comments I want to make. You know, I've made a motion to send a draft to our attorney and get his advice. I'm not interested in sitting in on a great discussion with him about this specific, very specific thing. The second thing, if I'm understanding Nina and Roberta's concern, we have no list of definitions other than on zoning that I know of.
Correct.
And the first red insert that you see on this were things basically that I pulled off Google, definitions of malfeasance or examples of malfeasance. I omitted things that I didn't think were applicable to town government. But these were things I pulled off my computer. Inactivity, I thought we needed a little bit of wiggle room. So I put some wiggle room. Excessive absences from meeting, especially without notice. So now George apparently feels very threatened by this, these definitions, but
Points,
Objection.
action.
I was trying to do very objective things, not exclusively, and that's why I put that for example in front of them.
All right, let's go again. We've got an amendment to the amendment, we've got discussion.
Roll call vote.
I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, raise your hand. Opposed? So all those in favor of the
First Amendment.
amended main motion?
Can I hear it again?
Oh, no, we only voted, we're not the main motion.
No, this is,
Correct.
we just voted on
Amendment to the amendment.
Second amendment.
the second amendment, which was George's about having this be an
Having
open
an entire meeting with
meeting.
town.
Now we are on the one that says that considering a glossary of terms rather than directly
Okay.
altering the.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment to the main motion?
Can I hear it read again?
Yeah, so the main motion with the amendment,
No, the amendment.
just my,
She got it.
so move to present the suggested ordinance to the town, attorney for review and to consider the creation of a glossary of terms for article, 130.011 removal.
Everybody's clear on that. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion, raise your hands. Opposed? One. Okay, that's it.
Now.
One more.
And a request for roll call vote was made first. So, Roberta Curry,
Yes.
Dominique Stanhope,
Yes.
Chris Craig,
Yes.
George Jones,
Yes.
Zachary Morris,
Yes.
and myself, yes, and Mayor Vaughn.
No.
All right, motion passes.
All right, now. All right, approval of minutes. We've got minutes of July 8th.
Yeah, there was one correction on the Chris made, I forgot to indent where public comment was. I since made that, so it looked a little bit messy. That has been cleared up, that was the only feedback I received.
Move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second. Discussion on motion to approve as amended. Roberta?
I have to vote no because I didn't receive the meeting minutes and, because my email is still messed up, so I apologize. That's fine.
That's not the discussion point.
I know, I just,
Any other discussion?
on the record.
All those in favor of the motion to approve? Opposed? 6-1. Next, July 3, yeah.
Yeah, I received no feedback, so, move to approve the July 3rd meeting minutes as presented.
Second on the motion, second, George, discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion to approve? Opposed? 6-1. Passes.
And same thing for July 30th, so move to approve the July 30th, 2024 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Second from George, discussion on the motion to approve. All in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand. Opposed? 6-1. Town reports, BNF, Storm.
Yep, it's 8:30, so I'm gonna try to move quickly, but please, if there are questions, do ask after I've presented. Item 1, oh, and I submitted a report, a few hours ago. Item 1, discussion and action regarding fiscal year 24 library funding. This town council previously approved annual operational funding for the local public library for fiscal year 24. The spending and documentation are complete, and they're now asking for those funds to be distributed to them. This is separate from funds that at the last regular meeting were distributed for arts programming. At that time, we had believed that this funding had already been distributed. It had not. So I moved to disperse $4,500 from 916 library for fiscal year 24 to the Bolivar Harbor Ferry Public Library for its ongoing operations.
Second on the motion, second from Zach, discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? 7-0.
Number 2, discussion and action regarding tree commission fiscal year 25 funding. It came to the attention of Parks and Rec that 2 trees on town property at the Children's Park present a hazard to neighboring properties. The tree commission was consulted and they recommend removal of a crabapple tree and anchoring a second larger tree. I move to spend up to $2,300 to have one tree removed and a second trimmed and anchored at the children's park, pending written authorization from the neighbors to utilize their property for this work.
Second on the motion, second from George, discussion on the motion.
Discussion.
Roberta, Benza,
We are losing a lot of trees in town on a daily, monthly, yearly basis. And is there any way that there can be something in the funds to specify a tree to be replanted, either somewhere in town or somewhere in the children's park, that can offset these loss of shade and the loss of these trees over time?
But it is part
part of the issue that I think should be brought to the tree.
yes. That's under the tree commission's mandate
Right.
and is contemplated in the budget generally.
So do they specify something that there will be a tree that is planted at this time when the tree's cut down?
Roberta, I recommend you express your concern directly to the tree.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
And the next meeting, express that.
All right, thank you.
I will say that since this is in the children's park and Parks and Rec could work to replace it, the crabapple is coming down pretty sick, so we're just worried that it in its current state could hurt somebody. So, but my question was, I heard the beginning of this at Parks and Rec, and now we're here. Did at some point we get additional quotes for the work? Because at one point we're basing this off a single number from one tree contractor, and I just want to make sure that that number is in the right ballpark and we're not authorizing funds without doing our homework.
That was corrected, requested during budget and finance to have 3 oral bids. It falls under the threshold that we would require 3 formal bids.
Other discussion. All in favor of the motion? Opposed, 7-0.
Discussion and action regarding waterworks fiscal year 25 revision 1. The West Virginia State Auditor's Office requires budget revisions when there are material changes to revenues and or expenses. This revision, kind of a big one, includes the new revenues, primarily from the recent rate increase, as well as a few expense adjustments, and we need the finance officer to present those. I think she.
I'm sorry, who said what?
I'm letting Debbie know that they.
Debbie, she may have stepped out because the trees we were talking about about her property.
Well, she's not canceled.
I could be wrong.
Waterworks 25, Red 1.
Okay, so, your revenue has changed due to actual increases from new chapters achieved and made, slight adjustments to just balance things out in the expense section. Expense section is adjusted to increase main contracting activities that we have done in previous meetings, as well as accommodate adjustments in staff containment in the water plant due to immediate circumstances that are currently existing. And also adjusted office rates payments that were approved in the July 3rd session. Excuse me, July 3rd. So overall, you have an increase in the budget of $40,375, which is about the rate.
I move to adopt Waterworks fiscal year 25 revision 1 as presented.
Second on the motion. Second from Lee, discussion. All in favor of the motion? Opposed, motion carries 7-0.
And that's it. The other big stuff was covered in the special meeting on July 3rd.
Next up.
The invoices and purchases with special finances,
Treasurer report.
Yeah, so your report tonight is for the end of June 2024, which is the end of the fiscal year. While it is the end of the fiscal, is the last month, this is not to be considered the end of the year finances. It takes us several months to get all that sorted and we figure out the process with cost holiday. And then it will finalize the percent of auditing. So this is revision 6 for general fund and operating income showing at 102%, and expenses are just right in there on 100%. And in waterworks, you're looking at revision 4, and water billing income, actually came in a little bit high, which is great. Expenses about 96.5. It is projecting a loss of about 51,000, but please, again, these are not final numbers, so do not, they're for discussion. If you have a question, ask me first.
I move to approve, the reports as presented.
Second on the motion to approve, second, Chris, discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand, opposed, 7-0. Debbie?
And then the invoices, all of them are sitting right here. We have your list, any questions are on the list. Yes, sir.
I only had a question on the PSC assessment. Was that
Yeah.
particular for our recent actions, or is that
Oh, no.
an
It's
annual?
an annual assessment and it's based on reserves. I have to fill out a report every year that presents how much billings we generated, how much revenue we generated, coming for questions. And from that, they generated.
I guess I missed that in the past, so,
Yeah.
okay,
It happens about this time.
okay, thank you.
I move to approve the invoices and purchases as presented.
Second on the motion, second from George, discussion on the motion to approve. All in favor of the motion to approve, opposed, motion carries 6-1. In lieu of, is there any questions for the chief? For his report? Same time. Okay. OCO, at that, any questions on the OCO?
I do on the OCO report.
Yep.
And it has to do with, items that he has as informational items. Mainly because they involve, the address at 898 Fillmore. And, again, there's been a lot of complaints. There's 2 issues on his report where they're talking about parking complaints and then, failure of installing the driveway. I would like to make some comments on that. And I have some pictures to enter into the record where there appears to be visitors at that site which are parking all over the front property line. They're ruining the landscape of the property owner. It's too bad. They're also blocking the stop sign and creating a hazard. We had a concert this weekend and I probably saw almost 3 wrecks at that intersection of Zachary Taylor and Fillmore Street. So if it is warranted, I would like to do a couple things and make a motion that since it is part of the ORC report that
Oh, point of order.
okay.
Yeah, it's not,
Okay, so let me bring these points in, and I would like town council maybe to put it on the next month's agenda. But here's what I'd like the OCO to do is to, because he's bringing up parking complaints, they are numerous, and the driveway option is not installed, and they are supposedly a licensed commercial, a licensed B&B, and they're not operating correctly because they don't have off-street parking that's required by code. So technically, they're in violation of Article 1104 because the trees are being parked on and are damaging our public right-of-way and the public trees. They're in violation of 1109. They're in violation of 1304.03, off-street parking, which is required. They're also in violation of Part 13, Project and Zoning Code, Appendix A, driveways and off-street parking, items 1, 2, and 3. So I'd like the OCO to formally issue them a violation. And then also, I would like the town to try to solve the problem of the stop sign. The stop sign has been vandalized. It's been painted or got graffiti on it. And it's also about 3 feet too short. So that's why no one can see it when cars park in front of it. So I would like the town council to figure out who's responsible to replace that stop sign and get the proper authority to replace it and install at the proper height. And again, that's at the corner of Fillmore Street and Zachary Taylor Street. Again, replace the stop sign because it's a public hazard and safety hazard for our visitors. I'm sorry?
Pete's house. Oh, Pete Murphy's house. All right, first of all, I'm not going to order the OCO to issue a citation. I will ask the OCO.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
Sure.
I'm not going to order John Brown to issue a citation. All right? Okay. Present it to the OCO, that's what it is.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
Where are we? We are at the Water Department, OCO, Water Department. General report from PWA, Steve. Sorry, this is taking so long to get to you. So,
statistics I usually give you the tanks, pretty much at the typical levels, minimum 61.5%, maximum, 93%, then a median by about 75%. And the common flow of water, it's pushing 50%, it was 49.3% as I calculated. I think last month I reported 45%, so not going in the right direction there. Somewhat to that end, I did have the opportunity to go from supposedly the leak detecting expert from the West Virginia Rural Water. He came to spend a day with me or a morning with me to kind of give me a little bit of, I'm going to say, leak detection 101 training. So we got out and kind of talked through how to approach it. Alan Martian was there, I think, following week to learn and practice a little bit with listening. We got out and listened to a service line leak in front of Storm's house, and pretty much able to identify that we've got probably a fairly significant leak under the brick sidewalk. Unfortunately, the brick sidewalk is brick cemented in. So Greenridge is looking at and has suggested a way that we might be able to pull that line without being up the sidewalk. The fellow from West Virginia Rural Waterworks is willing to come and has the capability of coming and measure our 3-inch meters. That's something that has to be done annually. We've never done it. They have to be tested in place. So once we convert these meters to the ultrasonics, we will do the plumbing necessary to do the in-place testing. Greenwich has done that plumbing up at all the courts. If you all recall, we did buy an ultrasonic 3-inch meter in advance of everything, just so we can get an idea of how much more accurate it is. That was installed last Thursday to replace their broken turbine meter. The delay really was due to all the extra plumbing that had to go in place so that we would be able to test it. We want to recognize, actually, the role of the office staff here. Kathy was out reading with me as late as now, and probably Kathy is out there, you know, kind of looking at it in the heat. All the rest of the staff have to fill in on, you know, answer phones and answer the door and take things and all the rest of the. So I very appreciate the support that she has, and she was able to get out and read his face. The guys were there the last month to do that. Well, I have seen before that the mention of vacancy has been posted for with that. Lastly, from the storm Debbie, I was, I guess you'd say, fortunate enough to be here in town. But the guys, Chris, Fire, and Tom, worked well together to keep out ahead of all that. We went into the storm with 90% full of the tanks. That allowed us, being in that position, to allow us to be able to slow the plant down a little bit, which allows a lot of dirt to settle a little bit more. We were able to shut the plant off on Friday. We ran over for 2 hours. I think that was in the worst margin. So the tank levels dropped. I think this morning, whenever they were down slightly below 60%, but that's still enough to get recover from. We have enough flexibility there. I think that one of those days, Tom was on Thursday and Friday. Tom, you could come in and, you know, run the plant for a few hours, basically take out what it's all in set basin, run that through the plant, fill the set basin up with, you know, another 3 hours worth of junk, and, you know, I'll just go home and put it out, and back in the car, and then ran for another. Right now, the function is full. So we're all looking at the, you know, the total. So that's question for Steve.
Do you have a sense before the top of the storm came through how close we were to having to go to the Potomac to drop them?
I mean, actually, I was concerned with things, you know, for the leak, that, you know, that might be something that would, you know, would come up. So I, you we've been watching it, it hasn't been that close. It's not that it's paying attention to it, but we have to correct the system, to kind of push anything that's in the place, over out, not that yet. And then feel that's wrong with that, and understandable to do that. We'll have to watch it and see how quickly it log that down. But, it's, especially to the partners. So the Delta has declared a 55 statewide water emergency. It's focused mostly on agriculture. But we were requested to help submit a written questionnaire of whether or not we have been affected yet, whether or not we had curtailing service and anything like that. So we were able to answer some negative positive response rate. But yeah, it was
Thanks.
Yeah, just to add to that, at the last Elk Run meeting, the report was kind of surprising that the aquifer was as strong as it was after that long drought. So that's good news for us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Steve. Mike, yeah. So Steve, Chris, and I attended the design committee meeting of the PFA's Action Plans Workshop funded by the US EPA. It's a grant to the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection and West Virginia. The meeting focused on what to do with community meetings, how to engage community residents, and how do we select and train community ambassadors. No decisions were reached, but we did learn a lot about PFA pollution in Jefferson County. There are only 6 PFA polluting facilities in all of West Virginia, none in Jefferson County. The primary source of PFAs is private. The primary source of PFAs in Jefferson County is runoffs from farms using biosolids as fertilizer that they get from our wastewater treatment plant. And there are PFAs in the wastewater treatment plant. And their sludge. Where does it come from? Any guesses?
Us.
It comes from us.
Christopher.
It comes from us. And the third possible source in Jefferson County is legacy polluters that we don't know where they are. And West Virginia DEP is trying to figure out, are there any? If they are, where they are. The bottom line is household wastewater is probably the dominant source of PFAs in Jefferson County and Harpers Ferry, from a wide range of products, from cosmetics to washing, fire-retaining clothing. Unfortunately, the DEP doesn't know what proportion is from sludge, what's from households, and what's from legacy. That's all to be decided. So that's one thing. The second thing I want to talk about is that Chris, Steve, and I came away thinking that this is an important project for us. And we damn well like to make sure that we get to participate. There are only going to be, in the first round, there are 6 communities in Jefferson County for the Eastern Panhandle, and only 2 of them are going to be funded in the first go-on. And so the question is, do we make a run at this? And if we make a run at it, what does the run look like? I've had preliminary email conversations with Maria Russo, and she understands that we have a lot of things going for us. We've got a town council that's committed to the environment. They all got their own ordinance. We've been active in Safe Water, Harpers Ferry, and Elks Point Watergate. We have an excellent water commission that is champing at the bit to get involved in the environment. And we have Steve and a water department that is on top of this. So Maria is aware of our advantages. He does not know yet whether or not we're going to be called. We're trying to make push, but we won't know for a while. What I've said to her is that our combination of assets provide the best possible test of the workability of the community-based PFA's action plan we could implement. Said another way, if it doesn't work here, given all of our assets, it ain't likely to work anywhere else. So that makes us an important test for this. Maria is aware of our strengths, and we got our fingers crossed. And with that, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
May I ask a question of, may I ask a question of Mike? Mike, two things. Can you define legacy?
It's something that no longer is operating. So it's a factory that was somewhere in Jefferson County and is maybe so derelict that there's not even any evidence that we live there.
Okay, and my second question is this program going to help us lead to grants, funding to either replace our water system that is contaminated with PFAS? And is it also
Probably not.
is it going to help you figure out how to write a lawsuit to some of these large companies like 3M who are paying billions of dollars to small cities?
Yeah, except it's, you know, one of the things that came out of this is that, I think I've mentioned it here before, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission has a very thick report of all of the household products that have PFAS. And there are hundreds, if not thousands. And that's what's getting into our water. And it's not just 3M.
And I'm just using them as an example.
It's all the products. And getting at that ain't gonna be easy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Landmarks is the chair on report.
Yeah, we have a brief report. We met with Rodriguez family about the house they're planning to build. Really came to some great conclusions. It seems like they're going forward. Great news on it. And Caitlin, I believe, is going to attend a training session down in Florida. That's pretty good news. And I guess good news also, the next item, we got somebody who's to step forward and fill our vacancy.
Okay, so we have discussion actions on our employment and landmarks commission. We had one individual, that individual has withdrawn his application. But we have another individual that is willing to serve on the landmarks. The chair will open up nominations.
I nominate Kim Wheatley, the landmarks.
Any other nominations from the city? Nina, would you call
Roberta Beasley,
Yes.
Tom Cosenza,
Yes.
Chris Craig,
Yes.
George Jones,
Yes.
Zachary Morris,
Yes.
myself, yes, Mayor Vaughn.
Yes.
All right, nomination passes.
Do you notify her?
Yeah, this is for seat 5, with term ending the 31st of January 2027.
And Nina, you have a meeting in 48 hours, so.
And she's effective as of right now. She's a
Right, but I mean, you can notify her in 48 hours to help you.
Okay, planning commission, planning commission reports.
Planning Commission did not meet in July, so we don't have a meetings report there, but we do have a special meeting on the comprehensive plan scheduled for tomorrow evening at 7 here. I think I misspoke last month. This is actually on the last focus area of the comprehensive plan, which is land use. And it may take 2 special meetings to finish this one off. But we're meeting tomorrow at 7.
And will Christie be there?
Christy DeMuth, our WVU consultant, will be joining us virtually.
Next up to that. All right. Yeah, this just in, a resident informed me that Henry Clay Street has, maybe as a consequence of other things, but definitely when Denton pulled through, a subsidence on the street.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and then that's right above the daycare center. By the first power pole when you're coming onto Henry Clay, the curb. I went by and took a look myself. It moved, it's broken in the middle, and then moves 3 inches out, and it's sculpted in a straight vertical line down to the daycare center.
That's where a couple of trees were lost. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that has moved 3 inches just in the recent time, and then about 50 or 70 feet beyond that, there is the road is tilting down towards the daycare center. And so I'd like to ask planning to take a look at this, and Mayor, I don't know, I'll get Larry to take a look at it. This, you know, if this is a real problem, this is a high dollar item. Yes, and so that's the reason I bring it up and take up our time here, because that could impact other things we're thinking of. Those 7 houses there, if they can't get out and they gotta go up by the graveyard in the winter, that's not happening. Thank you. Zach?
Yeah, sure, yeah, we can, yeah, oh, it's next, yeah. Right, so I just first, to start off, to be clear, this is an agenda item for myself, not from the planning commission. I probably should have moved it to new business, but it got complicated at the beginning. It's related to some discussions we've had at planning and brought to the town council last month about lot subdivisions. And again, this is just me, not from the planning commission. I think one concise way of addressing some of this, at least shortening the number of meetings we've had about this, would be an amendment to our zoning ordinance. Right now, the zoning ordinance for setbacks refers to the property line and then 10 feet from the property line. And that works well for newer houses, especially since that was put in place. For historic houses, there are some that are grandfathered in and built closer to the property line than 10 feet. So if you have 2 new houses, there's 20 feet between them if they're built as close as they can be. For historic houses, sometimes that 10-foot gap between what would be a new house is all you have. And we've had a few requests for lot subdivisions of places that were historically yard lots to historic homes that were then built on or across or adjacent to the property line. So my suggestion is that we add a phrase to the end of that section of the ordinances, which is ordinance 1304.02 B3C. And I'll make a motion.
I'd like to hold all motions until we have discussion on the subject.
Let me make a comment.
Sure.
As the chair of planning, I'm wondering if it would not be more reasonable to have this issue brought before planning first, and fully vetted with planning, prior to coming to here to us to amend an ordinance.
We could do that. I think it belongs to the ORC, which is where I was going, was to
Well, I'm not sure that it does.
I think,
I'm thinking that it belongs with PC, not ORC. At this particular point in time, maybe after the PC makes a recommendation. That yeah, this, that, or the other, then I think it would go to ORC. I don't see this falling in the lap of ORC right now. What's your comment?
Just trying to shorten the amount that's put on planning at the moment because we're trying to finish up the comprehensive plan. So as this is me as a town council member, suggest trying to get something to ORC as opposed to planning. Well,
I agree with the mayor on that idea. I think the zoning ordinance is really given over to planning to make the initial recommendations on, and then ORC might be used to put it, format it, and look over it.
Yeah, I don't see the urgency on this act. I mean, we've gone for how many years like this? It's right. But I just would feel better that we could get this on your agenda.
Sure.
And then once you come up with a recommendation, then we cut ORC loose on. My thought. George?
My thought is that, one, we do have urgency because we have a heck of a lot of lots coming online. And we're gonna have a lot of building. So I think we ought to get on this. The second is, I don't think with this simple a matter as he's asking, in terms of language, it really has to take time to go through our ORC, because all he's talking about is planning, and I agree planning ought to talk about this. Planning has to just tack to whether or not they want to tack to the end of the ordinance, and 10 feet. That's basically about 4 words. So it's not as if we got to wordsmith this thing in ORC.
It's not about wordsmithing, it's about the state authorized, commission that has responsibilities for land use. And that resides with the planning commission, does not reside with
Well,
ORC,
actually, it belongs to ORC.
and does not reside with ORC, it
I
resides
mean,
with the planning.
That's right.
Let me go.
I misspoke.
All right. Anything else? Anybody else?
Yes,
Go ahead, Roberta,
yes,
first time.
okay, and I would like, to ask some questions of Zach. But I do have Article 1304, and the paragraph he's asking for. So paragraph B, paragraph 3, item C. So in the side setbacks, the first thing it says, consistent with the setbacks of the majority of other structures on the block and across the street. What that means is a block average. So it's not 10 feet. So first you look at what is the block average on the block and across the street of the structures. Item number 2 says, on a transitional property between distinctive areas of setback, such as between structures that are historic structures and those structures which are not, again, not historic, I'll put that word in there, side setback should defer to that of the historic structure. So let's say the majority of the block has historic structures on it, or what your project is going to do is add to that historic structure, then you have to abide by the historical setbacks already in place by that historic structure, or use that as your basis. Item C, paragraph C, which you have, what you're asking about, in all other cases, the side setback shall be minimum of 10 feet. It doesn't mean that in all other cases, new construction, point blank, you have a blank lot, you use 10 feet. That's not what it says. You go to A and B first, and you determine if there's block average and if the historical structure takes precedent. So if the setback on the block is 3 feet or 30 feet, and you average that, or you take that as your go, that's what your go is. So I also would agree with the mayor. In fact, I had a motion to refer it to planning, but I also think it needs to go to HLC, because I think to blatantly say that you want 10 feet or something greater goes against the first 2 items, A and B, which talks about block average and historical structures.
Yes, I think the first part of that refers to the front setback, which should be the average across the block.
No, it says side setbacks.
It's side.
It says side setbacks.
So, well, so yeah, so this was, the reason I brought this forward was, it's just as an attempt to, for the case that came before us last month, that was the result of 4 individual meetings. And so the sooner we can get some clarification, I think it would shorten the amount of time of deliberation. And where I was going with it was to put in a clarification that I think it's somewhere in between, where it would reference the lot line, but then also the distance from any historic neighboring structure. So that way it ensures the neighborhood density, historic neighborhood density, sort of is retained.
And that's kind of what B already says.
Right.
B already says it.
I think it's complicated because the town's complicated by these historic structures and these lots. I think the thinking was 10 feet is a fallback, but either planning or the BZA needs to look at the environment that that house or that structure is being constructed in, and so that it looks like it fits in that district. They wanted that wiggle room. So it's a complicated process, and you know, I'm hesitant to mess with it much, but you know, I do think planning should be the place where it's addressed first, and I'd love to be a part of that too, if that gets on the agenda. So
Yeah, no, I agree that there is a certain level of urgency, given that there's a lot of desire for the building and it's complicated, but I think that this discussion kind of bears out that it is complicated and that it does require a body that is looking at this. And I agree with Roberta that committing it primarily to planning commission, perhaps with historic landmarks weighing in would be a good.
Thank you. Roberta, second.
Yes, last stab at it, sir. And I don't want Harper's Ferry to become cookie cutter architecture, cookie cutter setbacks. That's not what we look like. That's not our historical fabric. That's not our architectural scale, proportion, and whatever we pay attention to in this town. The fabric is unique on all sites and all properties and all blocks. And the 10 feet precedent would set a cookie cutter, and we're not Rutland Homes, we're not, DH Horton, we're not, anybody else that's cookie cutter homes. We're unique, and let's keep it unique. Thank you.
All right, first one is a motion from me.
I'll have that motion ready, sir. And Zach, make any amendments you feel necessary. Regarding agenda item 5G2, which has been presented by resident Zach Morris, be referred to the following committees: Historical Landmarks Committee and Planning Committee for review, discussion, and action, and said committees to return a recommendation to ORC if a text amendment or amendments are necessary.
Would you change that to bring it back to council? That's the council that would bring it to us.
Where would you like me to go ahead?
Just substitute town council.
For ORC first? Okay. All right, so let me repeat that. Okay. So
We got it.
okay, all right, good.
Yeah, can you just read it so that
Yeah,
I can get
okay.
from right?
Okay, so refer it to the committee's Historical Landmarks Committee and Planning Committee for review, discussion, and action, and said committee or committees to return a recommendation to town council for any text amendments if necessary.
Second on the motion.
Second.
Strong discussion on that.
I would like to amend that to strike the reference to historic landmarks, because I think there is some urgency here, and if it has to go through 2 coordinated committees, that will just take more time.
The second discussion on the amendment.
I think that's an error because you're asking for historical setbacks to be interrupted on historical structures and historical lands and historical towns. You have, in fact, what Planning Commission probably needs to do is also ask historical landmarks to come in and review it together with them. Maybe you can do a joint review, but I still think historical landmarks needs to be considered. It's important.
Just like to say I'm in favor of the amendment, but agree that planning should reach out to landmarks to get their expertise.
What was the second?
Second with George. All right, any other discussion on the amendment? So you know what you're amending, I don't know what you're.
Taking out landmarks,
Yeah,
just being committed to landmarks.
okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? 6-1 pass.
That was for the amended. That was for the amendment.
Who was the
Yes.
second one?
George. All right, now the amendment to the main motion. All those in favor of the amendment to the main. No, excuse me. The main motion. All those in favor of the main motion, raise your hand. Opposed? 7-0. All right, so IOC, yeah.
Okay, give me a moment. So for general, we are reaching a point of public consideration for the town logo, color scheme, and typeface options. We have another meeting this week with our designers, but we should be able to have the open house in the next couple weeks. Once you've selected the logo, color scheme, and font, we'll be able to receive the creation of our website. They wanted to hold off until we had that because that would dictate a lot of the theme and design for the website. We also have been working with the Public Works Administrator on the vacancy within the Waterworks Department. We put out notices for the vacancy on several different websites and been collecting resumes, which we will be reviewing in the coming weeks. Yeah, I think we're ready.
Oh, May, are you going to take over? Okay. Okay. Thank you, acting chair. Quick question on the font.
Yeah.
Some concerns that we have is the font choice is able to be converted to Braille, and are you asking the person that we make sure that that font choice can be converted to Braille very easily?
So the website design team has a accessibility function, so any text on the website would be able to be ADA compliant with any accessibility features.
Thank you.
The typeface is more just for like headers and things like that for design purposes, not, but that would not impact the ability for anything to be able to be read by any sort of software that's ADA.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It'd be an image, so there's there's alternate text that you can attach to an image that would be rendered.
Yeah, it's like a back end code that you can do that works with all
As long as we're making that consideration, I appreciate that.
this. We fully ADA compliant.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
And that's it.
Okay. We need to turn the lights out. Oh,
Well, that's up to the committee. So I'll try to read this quickly. This is the Dark Skies Committee. The committee met on August 6th. The last meeting was August 6th. There was a debrief for the July 3rd walking assessment of Washington Street in Lower Town. It was agreed that 2 more assessments should be conducted. The next one will be East Ridge, the length of East Ridge and Fillmore Streets on August 21st. Public is invited, of course, Town Council to join. It'll be 9 p.m. meeting at the corner of East Ridge and Gilmore on August 21st. So as to see what the actual situation is right now after dark on those streets. And there will also be, it's not scheduled yet, an assessment walk of West Ridge, Putnam, the west side for the same purpose. And there's a wide-ranging discussion that included the different models that might be used to construct the town's ordinance. Feedback received on the subject by Planning Commission as part of the comprehensive plan update process and the comprehensive plan that currently exists. And then key elements of the ordinance and the range of policy choices for each of them. Determinations were not met, were not made at that point, but to start getting into our heads about what we need to consider. It was agreed that at the next regular meeting, not the walking tour, the committee will examine the desirability, appropriateness, and feasibility of becoming a certified Dark Sky International town. The chair of the committee will be presenting that information at that meeting. And then the other big thing we did was we made a list of key stakeholders, and it was agreed that their input should be sought. And we talked generally about the process for doing that, which would likely involve at least one open house, if not some direct outreach. But there are a lot of stakeholders, so we didn't reach any complete determinations at this point.
thank you, sir. Old time Christmas song?
Yes. So the committee met on. Oh, exactly.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you're ready to go.
I don't have much. I was just gonna say we met and elected officers. We can have a better report.
That's good. I like that one.
I guess. I guess
I was the Smart Thing Element Merchants Association. Zach is the vice and I'm the secretary.
Okay, all right.
I think that's a little rearranged, but that's fine.
Oh,
Martha was on the fence about continuing a role. She didn't want an officer position, so it came to the two of us.
you're right. You are correct.
So
It was a wild meeting.
it was
As far as it's such.
Oh,
things
swear
go.
everywhere.
not yet, but by Christmas.
Sorry, didn't mean to steal your thunder there.
Yep. No,
We
we
did work.
It did. We're going to work with the Merchant Association and the Park Service to coordinate the combined celebration. It's a good one. Positive stuff.
Unfinished business update on Henry Clay. The DEP investigator has not returned my call this week, or last week. I anticipate a discussion with him tomorrow afternoon, and I will send an email to each of you if there's anything new to report. So I'll do that tomorrow. Okay, Storm, could you reach over your shoulder and pull the exemptions and give it to Nina so she can read the exemption?
My favorite. That one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
All right, this thing is gonna have so many holes in it.
I believe I remember exactly where that
I've got to memorize that.
No, we didn't.
I think it's on the first page.
I was thinking, yeah, I think it's D. Okay, do we need a motion to?
Yeah, slide that down.
I think it's D.
On point
Yeah.
of privilege, I move that we have a brief recess after.
I am recommending council, we go into executive session according to West Virginia Code 698-4 exemption to the open meetings act.
Open meeting. Open meeting.
Oatmeal.
Open Meetings Act.
Oatmeal for everybody.
Going to consider matters arising from the employment, retirement, promotion, transfer, demotion, disciplining of a public employee.
I so move.
Second on the motion, second for start discussion on the.
I would like to suggest that, Berlissa possibly be involved. The town clerk technically has duties over accepting applications and resumes and things like that.
put her on stand. So, is there, the motion on the floor, we have a second to go into executive session, all those in favor of executive session. Opposed, as carried 7-0. We're in executive session. We just go out and I don't know if we turned off.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, if anybody else turned off there.
Get
but
ready
these are
for the
all-
masses. to join us.
Yes, I'm sure they've been waiting. Oh, yeah, check. to make
Oh,
sure.
see if anyone's there.
Ring the big bell. Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah. We should just, we really should.
There's something out there.
We should give them a trophy.
I can't get my doohickey thing to work.
The door is at least unlocked, so we are not far.
Okay, if you're in the hall.
All right, we're back.
What's that noise? That was- Sounded like thunder.
Okay. All right, council, we're out of executive session at 10:10 PM. Under new business, discussion and action regarding town employees' performance issues.
I move that the town employees who demonstrated performance issues be placed on a 6-month accountable performance improvement plan, after which a determination will be made as to their continued employment with the town. These employees will not be eligible for promotions or step pay increases during this period.
Is there a second on the motion? Yes, second from Chris, discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn from Chris. We have a second from Zach. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion to adjourn carries 7-0. We are adjourned at 10:13 PM.
Wow.